Hi there, I'm Eitan, and welcome back to the Wix Wiz. In this episode, we are going to be talking about the image generation capabilities of OpenAI, and specifically the upgrade to Dall-E 3, which allows us to generate even nicer and more realistic, better looking images than Dall-E 2 did. Just to give you a little comparison, this is something by Dall-E 2, and this is the same prompt by Dall-E 3. So if you want to learn how to do all that and more, let's get started. Okay, so here we are back in the playground, and today we are going to be touching on something that we've done before on the channel, but we now have an updated API for, so it's worth looking into again, and that is the image generation. So now we have access to the new Dall-E 3, and if we take a look here at the OpenAI guides, we see that Dall-E 3 allows us to generate improved images and also has this cool HD option that we can test out. It's important to note that it only works for the creation endpoint. So Dall-E 2 also had the capability to edit and provide variations, but that is still only possible with the Dall-E 2 model. So we're just going to be checking out the new creation with Dall-E 3. And in order to do that, let's take a look here at the API reference, and we'll head over to images and head over to create image. So basically this is what we're going to be doing. Let me just go over to the curl option here, and we're going to need to set up a new function for this in our backend. So I'm going to head over here to playground, and here we have the chat completion that we set up already, and we're going to be setting up a completely new function for the image generation. So I'm just zooming in here a little bit so you can see better. And I'm going to create a new function here in the playground file in the backend. And if you don't understand the context of what I'm doing, this video is part of a series, so I do recommend checking out some of the other videos. The playground parts should be pretty standalone, so you should more or less get it by just watching this video. But when we hop over to the chat in a moment, if you don't get what's going on, definitely check out the other videos in this series. So here I am, and I'm creating a new function. It's going to be an asynchronous function. And let's call it generate image. And in the side of this function, we are going to have our API key. So I'm just going to copy this over as well. Same API key that we used for the chat completions. And it's going to have a different endpoint, which is here in the documentation. So let's copy that over from the API reference. That's right over here. And we see here that it's going to be a post request, just like the chat completions. So let's set that up as well. So we're going to have here const options. And here we're going to have the method, spelled correctly, of course, which is going to be post. And we're going to have the headers. And those headers are going to be the same as for the completion. So I'm actually just going to copy over those two headers and pop them right over here into my code. And it's just the authorization and the content type. And we're going to have a body. And it's going to be JSON format. So let's do json.stringify. Stringify. And here we're going to have an object. And let's see what that object needs to include. So what it has to include is the prompt. Okay, those are basically, that's the text based on which we're going to be generating an image. And here we have the model, which is optional. So if you don't provide a model, it'll default to Dall-E 2, as it says here. But we are trying to test out Dall-E 3. So we're going to pass in the model as well. So let's set that up. So here we're going to have the prompt. And this prompt is something that we're going to pass in here through our function as a parameter. And we're going to have the model, which we're going to set to Dall-E 3. And let's see if there's anything else cool that we can set up here. So quality, so that defaults to standard. Whereas if we set it to HD, then it'll be a even nicer image. So let's start off using the standard and test that out, see what it looks like. And after that, we can try and check out what the HD looks like. Response format, I'm pretty sure that's also new. So previously, if I'm not mistaken, it would always return a URL, but now you can also get it back it's probably a buffer, I'm guessing, B64 JSON, I think. I'm not sure. Sizes, if I recall correctly, we had until 1024 by 1024 for the previous models, and now for Dall-E, yeah, here for Dall-E 2 and for Dall-E 3 now we have some more sizes that we can request. So that's pretty cool, some larger sizes over there. Style, I also don't recall from the previous mod. It could just be I haven't touched this in a while, to be honest, but I feel like style is also on the newer side. And it could be vivid or natural. Vivid causes the model to lean towards generating hyper-real and dramatic images. Natural causes it to produce... We could try playing around with that as well. Oh yeah, only supported for Dall-E 3, so yes, that is a new Dall-E 3 edition, so that's also something to play around with. So we're going to be playing around with quality and style, but first let's just check and make sure that our function is working. So let's wrap this up. I'm going to say const response equals to await. I'm so used to writing await Wix data that it just comes out. Await fetch, and we're going to pass in the endpoint and options, and then here we're going to say const data equals await response dot JSON, and we'll return the data. So awesome. So this should be good enough to get us an image. So let's see if that works. I'm going to head here into our test suite, and I'm going to put in a prompt. And I'm going to say a cat eating ice cream. That's going to be our image that we're trying to generate. And I'm going to go ahead and hit run. Moment of truth. This is your chance to go ahead and like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel as you wait for this result to come out. And yeah, it's generating an image, and it's probably a high quality image, so I don't blame it for taking its time. What I'm a little afraid of is that we're going to have a timeout issue here. Let's see if anything happens. Let me just check our logs. Okay, no errors, so that's nice. It's really taking its good old time here. Yeah, I wish there was some kind of indication of how long it's taking. Because with the chat, you have the stream option, so you can kind of get things back as they're being generated. We're going to talk about that in a later video in this series. But here, I don't see that option, so you kind of just have to wait until it is all done, which seems to be taking quite a long time. Let me try doing this again. But here, I'm going to add in a log for console.log response. And I'll add in a console log for data as well. For data. And oh, I'll do something else that's kind of important. I'll set up error handling. So here I'll put this all in a try catch. And I'm going to catch an error here if we have one. So console.log error generating image. And let's log the error. Maybe we had an error and we didn't even know it. Okay, so let me try running this again. Okay, so I gave my editor a bit of a refresh, and I ran the function again, and I did manage to get a result for Dall-E 2. Okay, so I'm not passing in a model currently, so it's defaulting to Dall-E 2. And this is the response that I got here, so data, and here we have this URL, which should be the URL to the image that was generated. So let me just copy that over and paste it here in my browser. No. Let's see. I didn't get just the URL. Let me try that again. No, for some reason, it's not copying just the URL. Let me try copying all of this JSON, and let me paste it here in the playground and extract the URL from there. And try again. No. Bear with me, bear with me. There we go, there we go. I think I got it now. Okay, so here is our URL of a cat eating ice cream. And so it's amusing. It's amusing. I mean, the quality seems pretty good. Like it seems like very high resolution. But I think that it's more like cat a cat kind of like morphing into an ice cream cone, more like. I don't know, there's like fur here on the ice cream. Anyway, not the best. Not the best, I would say. So this is Dall-E 2. So this is our benchmark. And now we're going to try Dall-E 3 and see what happens. So let's go ahead and get rid of this because we don't want that anymore. And what I'm going to do here is activate Dall-E 3. So now we're just doing Dall-E 3, no HD, no style, no nothing, just Dall-E 3. So let's go back here to generate image, and I'm going to go ahead and hit run. In the meantime, I'm going to open up JSON viewer. It's just this kind of like online browser which you can use to kind of view JSON in a more friendly format, which will help us copy out that URL so we don't encounter the same issue as before. And we have our response back and data. And one thing that's interesting to see here, so we have the URL here for the new image, and we'll take a look at that in a moment. But one interesting thing that I see here is that we have also this thing called revised prompt. And it seems to be just like a very detailed explanation of what I already asked for. So I asked for a cat eating ice cream, and here it's like a fluffy white domestic, like very, very detailed description of a cat eating ice cream. And I guess that is what is passed into the model in the end to generate this image, which we'll see now. And I'm guessing that if I would have created a more detailed prompt, it would align this revised prompt with my prompt as well. Just an assumption. So let me copy over this JSON, and we can paste it here, viewer, and let me just copy over the value of the URL. Let me see if that worked. No. I'm not really getting any luck with copying the URL today, am I? Let me just copy it from over here, basically using it as a notepad. Okay, so this should be our Dall-E 3 image. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. So, I mean, it's in many ways it's less realistic than this. Just like it's like a little more cartoonish and like yeah, it's definitely more artistic. But it's more accurate in the sense that it's clearly like there's no mixing of like fur into the ice cream cone or anything like that. So that's pretty cool. Again, I mean, I don't want to judge everything just based on two images that I generated, but if we take these to be indicative of these two models, then yeah, I mean, definitely I see the improvement here with Dall-E 3. So let's throw in the HD. So that would be adding this quality as well. So let's throw in that quality and see what that looks like. So for that, we'll need to head back here and use the quality parameter, and we'll say that it'll be HD. And let's see how that changes the results. So I'm going to go ahead and test this out now again. Hit run. And after we do the HD, we're going to be checking out the style, what's the default? So the default is vivid. So I guess that one that we saw before, that's vivid. So we're going to try out the natural option next and see what that looks like. Assuming, okay, so here's the data, and we got a timeout error, but luckily I have the console logs in there to kind of catch the result anyways. So let me copy over the JSON of this result, and I'm just going to put it right over here. And the model seems to be taking liberty in terms of how it describes the styling of the cat, which makes sense because I didn't say anything specific, so why not? But let me just grab this URL and put it right over here. And this is the HD version. I don't see a huge difference. Yeah. I do see kind of like a similar texturing here in terms of like the tongue and the fur here, and also maybe even the couch here a little bit. So that's interesting. I wonder if that's some kind of like indicative element of Dall-E 3. Interesting. So let's just throw in the last one, which is the natural, just to see what that looks like. So I'm going to put that right over here. And it needs to be style. So style is going to be natural. And let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and generate our last image. And after we're done with this, we're going to talk about how we can incorporate this with the playground, with the front end of our website, so that we can let the user generate the image and see the image that's returned. So let's just wait for this result here. This one seems to be taking the longest so far. So we got back our data. Let me copy that over. And I'm going to copy over the URL. And let's see what this last image looks like. Interesting. I do see a stylistic difference. The tongues are all the same. I guess that's what a cat tongue looks like. Um, they do look, I guess there's slightly more complex fur on this one. Yeah, I mean, the difference between Dall-E 2 and the Dall-E 3 is quite obvious. In some ways, the Dall-E 2 one looks a little more like a real picture. So it looks like somebody took two real pictures and smoshed them together in a really terrible way. Whereas these really seem like it's like a work of art that was generated just like for this purpose. So that's interesting. And depending on, what instructions I would have provided, I mean, I provided a very simple prompt, but depending on what I would have provided, maybe it could also do some other things as well. But that's just kind of a comparison there between Dall-E 2 and Dall-E 3. And now let's talk about how we can actually get these images to the front end of our website. Okay, so here we are back at the front end, and here we have a very simple setup which allows us to send a prompt from the user and display a result from the AI. What we'll do here is we'll display the image part of the result here in the image, and here we'll display that kind of elongated revised prompt that we get back. So basically what we want to be sending back to the front end is the data that we got back from the generated image. So essentially that is this, okay, data. So what I'm going to do here is data.data. And then we have an array. So it'll be data.data, no, just .data 0, .data 0. So here I am in my function, and we'll send back return data dot data 0. That should cover it. I'm going to get rid of these logs because we don't really need them anymore. And I'm also going to comment out the quality and the style, also because I didn't see them making a huge difference, and I just want them to be a little quicker. And now we're going to import this generate image function from the backend to the front end. So let me zoom in just so you can see what I'm doing a little better. Oh, whoops, I should have closed this side panel first. My bad. I'm going to zoom in a little bit and open up the code panel. And here, so we already have this ask question function set up from when we were doing the chat completions. Again, I do recommend checking out that first video just to get a little bit of a refresher. But we're going to set up another function which will just send this prompt to the generate image. So I'm going to first import generate image. Whoops. Generate image from backend/playground, and I'm going to create a new function here. Let's say get image, and what we'll do is first we'll get the user's input, and a lot of this is going to be the same, so I'm actually going to copy this over from the ask question function. Whoops, let me just copy this all over. Something's wrong with my copy paste. There we go. Okay, so basically what we're doing is we're expanding the AI bubble, we're showing a loader, we're getting the prompt from the user, then we're expanding the user bubble with that prompt in it to display the question that they just asked, and then we have to actually get the response from the AI. So that's what we're doing here. And in order to do that, we'll say const generated image data equals to await get image, and we'll pass in the prompt. Sorry, not get image, I lied, generate image, the one from the backend. And then after we get back this generated image data, so we will assign the URL to this image over here. Okay, so does this have a name already? No, so we'll call this AI image. So AI image, close this up, AI image dot source will be equal to generated image data, generated image data dot URL. And the AI content dot text will be equal to the generated image data dot revised prompt. Okay, and dot revised prompt. And then what we're going to do is we are going to expand the AI image. So we can do here AI image. Why doesn't it find it? AI image dot expand. And the AI content, is that hidden by default? Let me see. Yeah, hidden by default. So we're going to want to show AI image, content dot show. And we can also hide the loader. Let's see what else we're doing here to wrap up. Yeah, so we're just hiding the loader over here. So let's do that in our getImage function as well. Loader dot hide. And that should be enough to get us going. I just need to assign this getImage function now to the event listener for the send button. So instead of ask question, we're going to be getting an image. And let me comment out this other function that we have here that we're not using, just so that it doesn't interfere with our code. Yeah, and I think we're ready for some testing. So let me go ahead and publish. And I'm going to head over to the live site. I'm going to give it a few refreshes just to be ultra sure that it's the newest version of the site. And let's give it a new creative prompt. So I'm going to say a bird playing the piano. Let's see if that does anything. So I'm going to send that over. So here we can see the prompt that I sent. And it's loading. And we know that this takes a few moments. And there we go. We have a bird playing the piano. So that's pretty awesome. And here we can also see kind of the full prompt that it's using. This is not something that you'll necessarily want to show to the user. I just wanted to demonstrate how it would be done if you did decide to do it. And it also just gives us a little context for the image that we're seeing. So now that we've managed to implement this in the playground, let's hop over to our full chatbot and see how we can implement it there. Okay, so here we are in our chatbot, and what we're going to be doing is now giving our chatbot the capability to respond with an image if we want it to. And in order to do that, first let's set up the backend. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy over the function that we built inside of our playground. So I'm just going to copy over this generate image function and copy. And I'm going to paste it in our chatbot file. Okay, right over here. And I'll paste it under the chat completions function. And now we can use this in our chatbot as well. So let me go to the front end file for the chatbot. And am I zoomed in enough? Let's see. No, let's zoom in one more. Okay, and now what we're going to want to do is to essentially call that getImage function. But we're only going to want to call that function in a certain situation because we need to allow the user to decide if they're expecting to get an image back from our chatbot or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of copy from like Midjourney, and there'll be a keyword that if the user uses that keyword in the beginning of their prompt, instead of getting back a text response, I'm going to try and get back an image. And that keyword will be \image. So here inside of our send message function, okay, so here we have a function that says send message. And essentially what we're going to do here is I'm going to check and see if this message, if this user input includes the keyword that I just mentioned. So I'm going to say here if user input dot substring 0 to 6 equals to \image. Okay, so that's 6 characters. Then what we'll do is we will say that we will then call a new function. Let's say getImage, and we will send in the user input dot substring, and we'll start from 0. We'll start from 8, let's say. Substring 8. Okay, and here we have a problem because we don't actually have an image yet, but we can say here await. This is going to be a promise, so we're going to want to get an image here. Yeah, we can just call this function getImage, and I'll show you in a moment why we don't need to wait for it. Okay, so now that we're calling this getImage function, we need to actually write it out, otherwise it won't do anything. So let's write that right under here. So it's going to be a function called getImage, function getImage, and it's going to take in a prompt, and it's going to call the generate image function. So let's import that here now from backend/chatbot. So generate image, and back to my function down here. So const generated image data, very similar to what we did before, equals to await generate image. And oh, sorry, this needs to be asynchronous if we're gonna get our image. Await generate image, and here we're going to pass in the prompt. And then once we get our generated image back, we are going to want to create a message that is similar to the other messages that we have generated. So previously, again, if this is not making any sense to you, go back and watch the other videos. But basically, our messages are structured like a chat completion message, so they will have a role and content. So basically here, we are going to have to say that const message equals to, and here we're going to have role, which is going to be assistant. And we're going to have the content, which is going to be the URL from the image, but we have to make it clear that this is going to be a URL. So what I'm going to do here is add in another object, and I'm going to say here URL is equal to generated image data dot URL. Okay, and then we are going to log this message, log message. Again, log message is a function that we set up earlier, which basically does all the actions that we need to do once we receive a message from the backend. One last thing that we'll need to do is to fix up our for each item callback function for the repeater and handle the situation where we have a URL. So here I'm going to say, so the loading animation we're always going to want to hide, and we're always going to want to show this, but here we're going to have an if statement that says that if content dot URL, okay, so if there's a URL property for the content, then what we're going to do is we're going to say item bot. I don't know if I set this up already in the naming, so let's do that. I need to find the, I know you can't see it, but believe me that it exists here. there are things here inside of the repeater. So for each item, we have two containers. And let's see. Let's turn on the IDs here. Okay, so this is the user one. And this is the bot. And here is the bot's image. Okay, so that is what we need to rename. And we're going to call this bot image. And now what we're going to do is say here that bot image dot source equals to content dot URL. And else we'll have it equal to the content. And that should be good. All the rest of the stuff we'll do in any situation. So now, moment of truth testing. So let me go ahead and publish this. And let's go to the live site and go to the home page where the chatbot is. And first, let's just do a standard test to make sure that everything is still working as expected. Let me do a few refreshes just to make sure that we're on the most recent version of the site. And I'm going to just start with like, hello. Okay, just to make sure that a standard message is still sending as expected. Okay, so that's still working as expected. So now let's test out our image generation. So I'm going to write here backspace image. And then I'm going to write, for example, a pickle dancing on a rainbow. Because if you're already generating an AI image, why not have fun with it? So let's send that out. I'm sorry I can't provide images, however you can imagine. So that did not work as expected. Okay. I know what happened. I know where we went wrong. So first of all, I didn't short circuit the original function. And I don't think I told it to display the image. So let's fix up those things. So first, let's start with short circuiting the function. So here, basically, what I didn't do is tell it to stop running this original send message function once we're running getImage. So this needs to be return, and that should prevent the first message that we had an issue with. So that's one thing that we're going to stop doing. And for the second thing that we want to fix, that is over here inside of the on for each item for the repeater. And we need to make sure that we're actually displaying the image. So the image is essentially collapsed initially. So we're going to need to expand the image here. So bot image dot expand, and we'll also collapse the content, which is shown by default. So bot content dot collapse. Okay, that should do the trick. But let's double check. So I'm going to head over here, give it a nice few refreshes. And okay, so first a standard test just to make sure that it's working. Okay, so the basic text is still working. And now let's try the image option. So image, a pickle, because I still want to see this, a pickle dancing on a rainbow. And let's send that off. Okay, so generally, okay. So here's our image back. Not bad. Not bad for a pickle dancing on a rainbow. Okay, so this worked. The only issue is that I accidentally I short-circuited the function too early. So basically it's not showing the user's message. So we need to fix that. So let me go here back to our send message function, and basically, okay, so this all needs to happen afterwards. So this is where we process the user's input. And later on, I'd probably go ahead and break these into several different functions to avoid situations like this. But basically, this is where I'm processing the user's input and logging the user's message. So all this should happen as usual. And this is where we're going to want to check and see if we're kind of diverging into the image generation. So I'm going to go ahead and publish, and I'm going to run one final test, and then we'll wrap up here. I do have a few closing notes that I would like to make. Okay, so let's first test hello. That's working. And now let's try our image. And let's try a fish sword fighting. And enter. Maybe sword fighting is 2 words. Okay, so here we're seeing the message, and it's a little ugly with the kind of /image beforehand. So I could process it and like tell it to say something else there if we have the /image, but that's already fluff. It's not really core functionality. And yeah, pretty cool. So image, so 2 fish sword fighting, I like it. And we're going to wrap up here. Just one closing note is that we didn't really talk about storing these images. So currently these images are not being stored on Wix. They're just being generated by OpenAI and being sent directly to the front end using a temporary link that OpenAI provides. I don't recall how long that link is valid for, but it's temporary. It's not forever. So that means that, well, definitely if somebody refreshes the page, but you know, in terms of like the conversation memory and stuff like that, it's just for displaying the image right after the request comes in. So if that's the purpose of your bot, then that's cool. But if you need to make some kind of record of these conversations, then you'll need to store the image in Wix. And you can do that using the backend the media APIs in the Velo API, so you can check that out. And we might talk about that later on in this series as well, but just note at this point that we're not storing these images on Wix. So that's going to be all for now. I hope you enjoyed this part of the series, and if you did, don't forget to like, and if you want to see the rest of the series or more Wix and Velo and coding related videos, then you should definitely subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time.